Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the Rebel Moon podcast. Hacking the future so you can gain the edge. Well, today is Monday the 16th of August, beginning of another week. We're getting up to halfway through August with a humdinger of a September to come yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Now, today, I think the time has come to move on from the arrests and executions of deep state assets and collaborators, because every man and his dog is jumping on the bandwagon now. And you know as well as I do what that means, guys. Yep, an overload of trolls, armchair experts, and other keyboard warriors who, although have been silent until now, suddenly have been bestowed with knowledge which has taken people like us many years and sometimes even decades to learn. Miraculous, isn't it? Amazing, but it must be true because they say so and they know more than us, even though they probably only read about it last week or whatever. In which case, we should be glad that we've already covered it before the waters get murky again. Now, as hinted last time, the disinformation, it's the blur facts, and they've already started as this new overnight pseudo-experts start to embellish what has already been said. And they embellish what they don't know until it resembles a fairy story, and then it's demoted back to the world of silly conspiracy theories. And that's how it's supposed to work. Diss everything. Always diss the truth. That is what they do. Until that is, they are proved wrong and thus expose themselves to everyone who knows otherwise. So it's no big deal. Even the human cockroaches have the right to make fools out of themselves. So while they're focusing on their shiny new toy, let's move up to higher ground. Now, a few podcasts ago, we've touched on the subject of HAARP, the weather manipulation technology, and that it was being used due to the abnormal weather anomalies that we've seen across the world. We've all seen them. They're in every damn country. We've never seen anything like it. So there's definitely something going on because, you know, think how long you've been alive and ask yourself, have you ever seen nature cherry-picking locations like is happening now for wildfires and floods? Never. We used to see wildfires in California every year, but now they're everywhere all over the world. Turkey, Syria, places you just don't see them. Greece is still on fire. Australia, they're just about everywhere basically. Anyhow, since then, it has become clear to many more people that something is not natural compared to all the stuff that we've seen in the past. There's simply far too many wildfires and floods, and they're far too scattered as well, and coincidentally all happening around the same time. Now, I've also been forewarning you about some big quakes that were on the way. And coincidentally, when I tried to explain the HAARP technology, I used Haiti as an example, because the earthquake that struck back there in, 2010, that was also suspected to be caused by HAARP. We covered that when it happened, well, it's quite a long time ago, 2010. Anyways, since then, as we know, Haiti has been under occupation by deep state US military forces, who we later discovered were actually stopping humanitarian aid. That's why you don't get much news out of there these days. And it's got so bad that we saw an outbreak of cholera because the Haitian people were having to drink water out of the sewers. And aid workers as well, there was a lot of complaints from them saying that they were being prevented from going to the interior where the worst hit places were that needed most help, but the military would not let them in. But it didn't stop the strange stories leaking out from some brave souls who defied the no-go zone rules and went in. Now, the 2010 quake, that was a 7-pointer, so it's similar to the latest one, which was only slightly stronger at 7.2. If that really is the true magnitude, guys, because as we've known for a long time, the USGS, that's the United States Geological Survey, keeps giving false information about the increasing strength of earthquakes for whatever reason. They're trying to make them look less than they actually are. And they lied about the Japanese 9-pointer. They said for ages it was only 8.3 or 8.5 until they had to fall in line with all the other foreign agencies around the world, the other survey groups, who all said it was 9 to 9.1. Now, but even before that, people were suspicious because of the tsunami it caused. As for Haiti, well, it seems the world has forgotten how bad things are there. There's very little media news comes out these days, and the little that does is carefully scripted to hide the true horror of non-media information that's carried on the wind by word of mouth, and phone calls and letters and texts. And the stories that tell of drug and trafficking, human trafficking from no-go zones, which are supposed to be devastated, but there are operations running from there. But they're still deemed too dangerous for civilians by the authorities. This will be the US authorities, by the way. An excuse or advice that's, 11 years old now. So it's way past its sell-by date. They're trying to tell us they haven't done nothing for 11 years when they were there to help the Arhesian people in the first place. But it's one of those excuses that ironically is back in force due to history repeating itself. Now you can take this next nugget of information any way you see fit, my friends. Once I've said it, it's no skin off my nose. You decide what you want to decide. Diss it if you want to, or look into it. Entirely up to you. But apart from leaks and gossips, area like these are often frequented by remote viewers and such, whose findings shouldn't be written off too easily. Remember, the remote viewing basically is what we call psi scanning or psychic scanning, but the military actually use the same method to get to places that you can't physically get to. They call that remote viewing, right? But as I said, you shouldn't write these things off too easily because they are pretty accurate. And especially when different groups who do it, and they're unknown to each other, come up with strikingly similar findings. They even draw, landmarks and things like that, even though they don't know which damn country they're in. Now, of course, many of which these things, they've been confirmed by whistleblowers later on that are actually on the ground saying, how did your group know that? How did they find out this stuff? They got the landmarks and everything. So it's a story that's becoming familiar around the world about these subterranean tunnels and caverns that are running beneath our feet. And they're called DUMBs, as you know, or some of them are safe havens. That's deep underground military bases. And no secret, we know the earth isn't solid. And many countries have ancient subterranean worlds running beneath them, including major cities. They've been there before the cities were even built. And some of them are riddled with these tunnels and caverns that have been further excavated by governments and expanded over time for whatever use. And some have been put to good use, like making the underground tube metro systems and others, but others are kind of classified as military or government projects. Now, these subterranean complexes were naturally formed over thousands of years from past Earth seismic upheavals and like lava flows, or they've been sculpted over time, thousands of years, by the flow of ancient underground rivers, of which there are many. If anybody tries to call a water shortage, just don't believe them. The world is covered in this stuff, and we've got so many underground freshwater aquifers, it's unbelievable. Because I think they're going to start with that soon. They keep hinting about water, don't they? And then there are deeper ones, which were deemed perfect for military bases. This was back in case of a nuclear war. And they're the ones called DUMBs, deep underground military bases. And you've seen these portrayed many times in movies and documentaries, etc., etc. And DUMBs that can be found around the world, from North Arctic Circle to the Southern Antarctic, and East and West as well, where, by the way, some kind of increased activity is taking place in the Antarctic, as I keep hinting. But at the moment, there's a bit of a media blackout that's being enforced. Now, some of the old abandoned underground bunkers that were decommissioned after the Cold War, they got snapped up by the rich, the thieving rich, who upgraded them to like high-tech luxury living, where they can survive, they reckon, some like 4 years. They've got enough food and water for 4 years. They are very strange. They look like luxury pads, but there's no light. There's no natural light in there at all. But hence why some of them are suspected, these underground tunnels, they're being suspected of being flooded. And all the vegetation around them that's hiding the secret entrances are being burned. Which brings us to the next question. Has the Trump alliance seized HAARP technology? I've heard a few whispers about this lately. And you have to think about it, because you think, well, if Trump's in and he's supposed to be a good guy and these alliance or white hats, they're the good guys, why are they all doing this? Well, it would make sense that they have took it over and they're now using it against the elite themselves, just as the elites have used it against us in the past. So it would explain the seemingly coordinated wildfires and floods that we've seen. And some of those, if you're in the know, you'll know that some areas are indeed suspected elite strongholds, underground strongholds. Now, Greece, for instance, let's use that as an example. It has some islands that were basically stolen by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the EU Nazis for some of the major players who said, I want a Greek island. And that's when they were forced to take loans out. You might remember that. Greece were trying to get out of the EU, but instead they were threatened and they were forced to take loans to pay off other loans. And you can't get loans unless you have assets that can be used as security. And in which case, when governments borrow off the elites, they usually put land up as security. Now, meanwhile, since then, some islands, some Greek islands, are now being put under a 99-year lease to unknown and unnamed sources, who, meanwhile, can use those islands for their own pleasure because they're leasing it. A lot of the Greek people don't even know this. Don't worry, I mean, they're only as good as the paper they're written on. But the same rip-off has happened all across the world. And we saw this with Gates, who now owns 1% of the North American continent, guys. It's hard to grasp that. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's huge. For one person, not that it's going to do him much good where he is, but, you know, it just shows what they've been up to. But that is a drop in the ocean compared to Queen Lizard Breath, who's currently squatting in Britain. Oh yes, the Queen Lizard. Well, actually, she's currently being exiled to Balmoral Castle in Scotland under the guise of taking her summer holidays because there's something shady taking place concerning the dysfunctional royal brood, as you know. And that being the steady dismantling of the monarchy. They're saying, oh, it's to streamline it. It's not. It's being dismantled. He said it's been streamlined. Yeah, it'll be streamlined eventually into nothing. So future generations born into freedom simply will not tolerate any form of upper class, ruling class or elites. They will not tolerate them at all. That's why they will be wiped out and the upper class will be brought down to everybody else's level. If they don't, they ain't going to last long in this new world once it kicks off. So all that pop and circumstance stuff, changing of the guards and all that BS, it's completely outdated anyway. And it only survives under the guise of tradition and using tourism as well. It's a big tourist draw. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it is not. People don't go to London to see Buckingham Palace. They go to London to see everything else, including the Buckingham Palace, Big Ben, Trafalgar Square, Piccadilly Circus, goes on and on, Nelson's Column, Cleopatra's Needle, River Thames, London Bridge, blah, 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 blah. But that's what they use. Oh, yeah, it makes millions in tourism. No, it does not. No, it does not. But it doesn't matter because it's all faded out due to a fast-changing world that's going to be soon catapulted into the future. I know what you're seeing now. It looks like dark and dystopian. We was heading down that path, but people are waking up. The closer they get to the truth, the more it will scare them, and that's when everybody starts backpedaling, and they'll all come onto our level then and start listening to what people like you have to say. It's something that you can see that they can't see yet. I know it's bizarre, but again, there's a lot of people talking about it. Why are some people, have they got mind blindness when we can see things so clearly? And let's not forget that the human society is at least 100 years behind where we should be. And that's all thanks to the elite suppression of everything that is good for us. Now, as the black nobility of Europe and beyond fall or run and hide, you're going to see the Vatican fall. This is already ongoing. It has been for quite a while, but it's been speeded up now. Now, the predicted last pope by St. Mulcahy, I think his name was St. Mulcahy, that's already expired with that demon-looking dude, Ratzinger. Do you remember him? The sunken eyes. He had to step down due to connections to the global pedo ring as well. He's another one that was supposed to be stamping it out. He worked for Pope John Paul. Pope John Paul said, stamp it out, that was his job, but he didn't. He just turned a blind eye to it and let it get worse. So in plain language, a warrant was issued for his arrest as soon as he sets foot outside the Vatican. You see, Vatican is a city within a city. However, I doubt the Vatican status of that city within a city holds today, or the same as it once did. Like if you're there, the police of Rome or Italy, they're not allowed to enter the Vatican and arrest anybody. They have to go through the Vatican police. And if the Vatican police say no, then that's nothing you can do about it. They've got to set foot outside that territory. Now, they're telling us that Ratzinger spends his day in Holy Pleur in some little complex in the Vatican. I don't believe that for a second. Now, we've already seen as well mass arrests. How many was it, guys? About 123, 125 cardinals. That was back in 2020. And then there's been another 11 or 12 very high-profile arrests in the Vatican just a few months ago. Now, that being the case, we can expect the Rothschild stronghold of the City of London, which is similar to the Vatican, a city within a city. We can see the City of London being compromised, and of course Washington DC, which has already, sounds like, is being compromised and cleaned. Now, you longliners out there, you know that these three locations make up the golden triangle of power for the elites. These are privately owned cities within cities or states within states. and they're exempt from the laws of the host country. They've got their own laws. The City of London has its own police force, everything. They all have. Vatican, Washington DC. And just for you guys who don't know, this triangle is made up from the Vatican, which is the religious arm of the New World Order. London is the financial arm of the New World Order, and hence why no European country has been able to replace it as one of the financial capitals of the world. Despite being tried for decades, Germany, France, they've always been trying it. Even, they've all tried it. And I think France tried it again, didn't they, recently with Macron over Brexit, saying he wants to strip London of its financial power. The guy's a nutcase, he doesn't know who he's dealing with here. But then again, he does. It's all bullshit because he's one of them. He's one of the little puppets. So, yeah, you've got the Vatican religious arm, London is a financial arm, then we have the military arm of the triangle, which is run from Washington, D.C., which is, for a long time has been the mighty US war machine. Yet Washington, D.C., again, is another state within a state in a way. I think it's in between states. But that's also exempt from the US and international law when it suits them. And like the City of London, inside the proper City of London, they all have their own police forces, as I've said, which protects all the criminal activities until now. Now, the world has already seen the protected laws and protocols of the elites being dismissed with this DC invasion debacle, where we saw 1,500 National Guards guarding the fake inauguration, which is said didn't actually take place there. But what the world saw was the capital of the free world hiding behind razor wire fencing guarded by 1,500 National Guard troops. Now, we know it was to stop China's puppet and supreme socialist leader, Joe Biden, and his commie traitors from getting in the White House and squatting there. And apparently, when he went, if you remember his convoy, when he was going down Pennsylvania Avenue, all the guards there turned their back on his limo, because that means they don't recognise him as the commander-in-chief. So a lot of them already knew that, well, I think we all knew the elections were fiddled. But apparently, what we didn't see is when his convoy got to the gates, he was refused entry. Him and what's-her-face, Kamala Harris, his vice president, they were refused entry by the military and turned away. Now Biden and what's left of his clowns now work from a mock-up White House, which I spoke about recently. And this is the White House is a mock-up, and it was built by the entertainment mogul Tyler Perry on his 300-acre studio, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's only around 80% of the size of the official White House, maybe a little bit smaller. You can actually see this on videos as well. You can see it looks tiny and it's very limited to what it shows next to it. But it's only about 80% size of the official White House, and that was built for a show. I believe it was called the Oval. I don't think we got it in England, but it was the Oval, as in the Oval Office. A little bit like that West Wing, which was another popular show everywhere. Anyhow, not forgetting that some sources as well took photographs of the studio lights on the ceiling of the Oval Office, which we know doesn't have studio lights. And some sharp-eyed people spotted some other anomalies on videos, like the corners of the set coming apart and what have you, and they'd freeze them and blew them up, you know. But all that was dissed at the time by all the naysayers. Anyhow, the real White House, as I said, is currently empty as mentioned, and since we said that, there's been a lot of, like a bit of a snowball about it. And this is even though, like, politicians around the world, they've broken up for the summer break. It will be quiet, but there's always usually plenty of activity because there's always a skeleton staff there. and there always has to be rather a president or a vice president, within your government, because you can't just close a country down just because you want to go on holiday. Otherwise, God, everybody be invading everybody all the time. But all we've seen, as I said last time, we've seen a practice landing of helicopters, the VP motorcade. This helicopter, by the way, lands at different places at the White House, so they're obviously practicing something. They're going on the lawn, then they're landing at the side of it as well. And then we have the Vice President's motorcade, although it goes from a residence up to the White House, parks there a few hours, then it goes back. But nobody gets in or out of it. So I'm right, Kamala Harris, she ain't there. She is not there. They're all in Georgia. Now, Australia, I want to talk about that. I want to do a quick visit to our friends down under in Oz. And now I've got something really wacky to tell you, right? But I want you to just listen to what I have to say, because this is weird and unusual what's happening down under bloody lockdown when it shouldn't be. So here it goes. There are whispers, like I said, they might sound a bit out there to people, but do not be too quick to write them off, because I've covered similar stuff like this in the past, a long time ago, but it was in the private blog. So let's get it out into the open, shall we? However, if there is any truth to this story I'm going to tell you, it would suddenly make sense as to why a free country like Australia is being kept in lockdown like some kind of Nazi curfew, while still using the old virus variant excuse that's basically faded away from most places in the world now, and of course is also suffering from fires and floods and other weather anomalies. In which case the same or similar reason can be tried and tested in other places where nature has seemingly got into revolt. Like I said, it's a strange revolt of nature where Mother Nature seems to be cherry-picking locations for destruction, while other parts of the country, life is normal. There are fires and rain, but most places it's still like sunshine and it's just a normal summer. Now, some in Europe have already been suspect as elite safe havens, some of these places that you've seen burning or flooding. And they've been known or suspected as safe havens in the past, although it should remain coincidental for now, okay, at least until we get more information. But here's the deal, this is from a long time ago, and a lot of people don't really know this, but did you know Australia has its own Area 51 base? And it's in a place called Pine Gap. We covered this many years ago. Now I want to tell you something about Pine Gap. In 1951 there was a treaty drawn up called the ANZUS. That's ANZUS. And what it is a security treaty between Australia, New Zealand and the United States. And it's a full three-way defence pact among three countries governing mutual security, military intelligence matters. And this also included the sharing of knowledge about UFOs, which all governments have. But it's this kind of treaty that America, as a lot of other countries, signed up to, very, very similar treaties. And that's why we keep hearing that only America can do full disclosure about UFOs and what have you. Now then, what's happened here? As they were trying to share and release this information, the US started backpedaling. And I think this was about 1984. And there was this fallout between New Zealand and the United States. And this was all about disclosing and declassifying the UFO phenomena. But as I said, the US refused. refused to do it and put pressure on New Zealand not to do it. But I think they released some footage anyway. So this treaty has kind of been in limbo ever since, although it's still active, but it's just not agreed between each other. So while New Zealand disclosed some UFO knowledge, the US was believed to be hiding a possible ET UFO base at Pine Gap in Australia. And some Australian groups actually tried to evict the ultra-secret Pine Gap base, but they failed. Now here's the kicker. It's thought that Australia has become absolutely riddled with these DUMBs, deep underground military bases, and tunnel networks, especially over the decades, more have been built. And it's thought to be one of the most active spots in the world for this kind of stuff. Now let's not forget the stories and leaked information that we've heard over the many years about these DUMBs and who inhabits them. Because we've heard ex-special forces talking about gun battles taking place in these tunnels and these tunnel complexes in locations like Dulce in America, as well as other places across the American continent and in South America. They're all over the place. And of course more recently in Washington DC. Now the problem being that when ETs or hybrid humans are mentioned, these whistleblowers are then pigeonholed into the Looney Tune bin. They're eccentric nutcases. These are ex-military. They know what they're talking about. But yeah, they're confined to the Looney Tune bin. Why? Because nothing is real to the small minds of the majority until the government confirms it. And governments never confirm diddly squat about anything we want to know about. And that very refusal proves that they are hiding something. Nevertheless, Pine Gap is known to be a human extraterrestrial underground liaison facility which is clandestinely operated by the United States government. So it's almost like that rather the US government have control over it, or, well, which government we're talking about here? Which US government? What, the Biden-controlled one? Because if it is Biden who controls it now, it would make sense why China's acting so aggressive towards Australia. All this coal and military presence in the South China Sea, they could just be distractions. Because China, like other countries, they're all chasing this advanced technology. Whoever has the best technology will lead the world. But what we're trying to stop is this kind of stuff falling into the wrong hands who will weaponize it against us like they do with everything. Every single thing. Now, some of this stuff is actually ancient technology. I know this will be new to a lot of you guys, but not to my longliners. But we have to try and get it out there, and then you can do your own research. You know, like I said, don't be stupid and diss things just because they sound a bit out there to you. It's only because you don't have the information that we have and that we've gathered over the years. But this is actually ancient technology. But it's more advanced than modern technology, which we try to imitate by back engineering it. A lot of stuff cannot be just replicated because the materials that some of these things are made of simply doesn't exist on this planet. And then we have the strange neighbouring fortress of New Zealand. What the bloody hell is going on over there? Which is allegedly in lockdown until 2022. That's why they're calling it Fortress New Zealand. Go figure. But let's not forget, there are very strong links with New Zealand to Antarctica and all the covert activity that's going on there beyond what we call the buffer zone, or non-human zone as they call it. And in there he's guarded by military, mainly the US, but as we mentioned, we've heard the Chinese faces being seen there now as well. So, they're all after technology. And like I've said before, there are things happening under Antarctica. They're now admitting that they have found structures down there, not just hills and valleys, green pastures, mile under the ice. There are buildings down there. But let's not go there because, again, that is a very, very deep rabbit hole. But I think a lot of that is going to be revealed as well to the public within the next 2 or 3 years. So anyways, it begins to make sense of the nonsense that we keep getting exposed to. Concerning talk about bringing the army onto the streets in Australia to enforce lockdowns. This is not Nazi Germany. But the Australian government, as well as others around the world, are acting that way. And of course, dictatorships never last long once people say enough is enough. It's a big risk what they're doing. So why are they trying to enforce people and keep them off the streets down in Australia, when they know it'll finish them at the end of the day? If there is no valid reason other than exercising power, they know they're going to be finished. They're going to be finished. And let's also not forget that the so-called human terrestrial liaison facilities are scattered around the world in different countries. Hence why UFOs and UAPs are reported on a wide scale. Now you know what UFOs are, and remember, UAPs are the new ones, which means they are not back-engineered by man. These are the real deal. So they call them unidentified, what do they call it? Unidentified aerial phenomena. That's the one. Anyway, I'm just trying to connect a few dots, so don't take any of this as gospel. Like I said, decide for yourself. Now here's the deal as well. Pine Gap isn't all that far from Alice Springs because it's like right in the middle of Australia. It's only about 11 miles to the southwest of Alice Springs. So it'd be interesting to hear from anyone who lives or works near there who may have seen or heard any strange goings on. Now Pine Gap is more commonly known really to astronomers, amateur astronomers and people who are into the space race and things like that. So it's more commonly known to the public as a satellite tracking station, which is operated by Australia and the United States. Now remember, Australia during the they were orbiting for the first time, Australia was very integral to the part. So when they lost communication on one side of the world, Australia took over and kept the United States in contact with the craft. Anyhow, it's made up of a large computer complex. I think it has those big radar domes, those big white things. And I think it has about 8 of them and various antennae and stuff like that. But it also has 800 employees, which is a lot for a satellite tracking station. But there you go, 800 people work there somewhere. And I doubt you ever see him in Alice Springs, but then again you might do. Now in the real world of conspiracy theories, there's increasing talk about raids on these dumps, these deep underground military bases, to clean them out. Like they've done with Washington, the tunnels there. But clean them out of what? Could it be the ETs who made the deal with Eisenhower back in 1954? Which no doubt included allowing the abduction of humans for experimentation in exchange for them trickling advanced technology to us. And if so, was it part of the deal where they can be actually not just abducting people but harvesting humans for other reasons? Not just for experimentation, but maybe sustenance as well. And the truth will eventually out when the new powers that be decide that the masses are ready for it. But I reckon that could take some time yet, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to come out within the next year or so that people are going to struggle to grasp, but they'll have to because it's what you call reality. A lot of people will be shocked. And it would also hook up to the hints about new technology that are being lined up for release once the elite bloodlines have been wiped out and all the collaborating forces have indeed been annihilated. Now, I just want to touch on that for a second, because as more things do come to light, as they are doing now, the blinkered masses are going to have to accept certain things that they've tried to dismiss in the past as we approach the time of disclosure. And I want to set the record straight for any new visitors out there. The common belief is that disclosure is just about governments revealing the truth about what they know about UFOs. That is simply not true. It's about revealing a lot of things, my friends, that a lot of things that are being suppressed by the powers soon not to be for probably centuries. And technology like Tesla's alternative free energy, which I believe will be revealed in the next US administration, which is not long. It's going to be way before 2024, as I said. I think Trump will return. And I always thought that Trump would be the one to release free energy or alternative energy, as they call it. Because as I mentioned before, Trump knows all about Tesla, Nikola Tesla, and his technology. And he has done since he was a young man. And he learnt it from his Uncle John, who was put in charge of Nikola Tesla's personal goods and belongings after his death. So he would have all the drawings and everything. And just a heads up that NASA, the whisper is preparing to release over 600 pieces of technology. 600 pieces of technology, guys, and some of which employs alternative energy. Told you, they've been ripping you off. Now, obviously, it won't all be released suddenly all at once. It'll be done at a steady pace. And besides, some of this technology that they have can't be used yet because it's so advanced we don't have the devices to use it yet. And people think like the smartphones are the pinnacle of modern technology, but they couldn't be more wrong. It's a piece of old-fashioned crap. Trust me, it's a piece of old-fashioned crap. It's kind of, you can compare it with the early days of the telephone. You remember they stuck on the wall and you had to wind them up and hold a thing to your ear and speak through another piece. That's what these lovely advanced phones are now. They're old-fashioned crap, totally outdated. You see, the elite powers that be, they only release technology to the public when it's outdated and they have something much more superior. Think about it. They're never going to give away their advantage over us or over anything they have in life. They are not going to give it to us until they've got something better, so we can't threaten them with it. Now, I spoke about this for many years, but I didn't think it would be released for a long time yet. Then again, Nikola Tesla invented Wi-Fi over a century ago, didn't he? So this released technology is way overdue, and it makes you wonder what else. If they knew about Wi-Fi 100 years ago, and like I said, Nikola Tesla invented that. Check it out, don't diss it. It's plenty of stuff out there. Just make sure you use DuckDuckGo, not Google. Otherwise, you'll get a load of crap told to you. Now then, as I've said this before and I'll say it again, people will be blown away when they find out the truth that's not only being hidden from them, but in some cases, weaponized and used against them. We're not just technology. We're talking about cures for almost every disease on earth that has plagued the human race for centuries. And the cures are being hidden and suppressed. Now, after all, how can the elite's big corporate pharma make any money if nobody gets sick anymore? It's like the everlasting battery. That was like invented in the 60s. I think it was bought by Eveready, who then shelved it, locked it in a safe and forgot about it. Because they want to keep you selling you new batteries. It's no good getting batteries that you can pass down to your children, your children's children. Everybody would only buy one once. That's not how to make money. They're obsessed with money. It's not about obsession with money. It's about keep making everybody spend theirs and keeping them poor. But here we're talking about pills. Listen to this. Pills that can cure almost every kind of cancer. And repair the body at the same time. No joke. Simple pills, no operation or nothing. And I reckon most of us have lost loved ones to some form of cancer. And I know I have. I lost my little brother to it and other members of the family. And these are kind of loved ones that needn't have died. And that alone is going to see the culprits being torn from limb should they ever fall to the mob. And hence why most of them will take their own life when they feel the noose tightening as the White House net closes in on them. You'll hear people standing down, things like that. So, elites, you can run, but you can't hide. That is the message. The big movers and shakers, yeah, they will flee to the safe haven bunkers, thinking they're safe and all that. But unbeknownst to them, the little ideals will become tombs in many cases, and I believe a lot of them have. A lot of those floods. People are saying, look, if it is Trump forces, why are they doing that? A lot of people have died in these floods. Not actually a lot of people have died, to be honest. The casualties have been minimum. What people have to remind themselves of is this is World War III. I always said it'd be a different war, and we're in it now. We're in a war with our own governments. Well, it seems that way, but we're in war with something else. But I'm going to leave that there for now, but just think about it that way. We're in World War, so really there's not a lot of people dying. And, we've heard all kinds of things about vaccines and what have you, and people dying. Like I said, don't take anything gospel. I've never seen much as disinformation around in my life. And you longliners out there, guys, you know it. We have seen a lot of disinformation in the past, but we've never seen anything like this. Even we get confused at times. We've never done that before. We know exactly what it is. But now we have to hold our hands up and say, I don't know. I'd never heard that one. I'd never even thought about it that way. Okay, so some of those places, floods and fires you're being seen are being done on purpose, but they reckon is that now Trump's alliance forces have actually seized that technology and use it against the elites to destroy their little underground bases and bases where they believe these hybrids are, or even ET. Like I said, don't close your mind to it. If you don't think there are any other life forms in this universe out of billions and trillions of planets, then you need to kind of ground yourself and start, again, turn the mainstream media off and start doing some proper research. And you'll find out these people who are telling you this are by no means stupid people. These are professional researchers. They spot holes in things. They know how to connect the dots. People like me, I can't compete with these people when it comes to research. They can research in 15 minutes what it might take me 5 weeks to find. So don't laugh at them. Do not diss them off. Listen to what they've said. Put it in the back of your mind for now and wait. Because trust me, there are a lot more revelations yet to come up. And as I keep telling you, some of them will be shocking. But like I said, they won't just release it all at once. People have to be breadcrumbed into it, just like they were breadcrumbed into this lockdown thing for the past 18 months. Now they can be breadcrumbed into the truth. Okay? So leave it there, and just thought I'd take you down that little rabbit hole for now. Because like I said, they're all getting onto the arrests and everything, so we got to keep moving forward, get onto different subjects before they do, and start muddying the waters. Just because they want to embellish it and add their own little bit in, and it throws us off. The idea is to get this information and whittle it down into layman's terms where we can just bang it off in half an hour's podcast, if you get my drift. Okay, my friends, so something for you to chew over and see if it rings any bells with you. Okay, my friends, meanwhile, I shall see you on the wind.